Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela
On 702.
All right, I'm joined now by Buti Manamela, who is the Minister of Higher Education, but is speaking to us now on behalf of the African National Congress. How are you, Minister? Are you Minister as well when you speak to us on behalf of the ANC?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, okay, no, good to see you. So what are you expecting as the African National Congress? I'm asking this question because things are different now. This is the second State of the Nation address under the GNU. So normally the State of the Nation address would be from the mandate of the ANC because there's been an ANC Lekgotla and. But now this has to be expressive and representative of the different parties in the GNU.
Look, I mean, as the ANC, being the largest party in the GNU, our expectation is that, from our National General Council, there was talk of a skills revolution. I think the President spent some time talking about how we have to reform our sector education and training authorities. We have to make sure that, TVET education and community college education leads to employment, and that no training should happen without, it being linked to what our economic priorities are. So hopefully there will be an emphasis on that, but also more resources because there are challenges as it relates to, the size and shape of the system. We clearly need, more infrastructure, both physical, but also to unlock the potential that digital infrastructure, can present in terms of, the post-school. Then, an emphasis on, the direction within which the growth and inclusion strategy would go, particularly in terms of the priorities that have been, identified. Importantly, I think the biggest challenge is unemployment, and in particular youth unemployment. So there has to be some details, from the President as it relates to, to that. Young people are not in employment. Education and training have now grown to way above 3.4 million. And then there are some, general challenges, around how we going to fund this program. I think there's been talk about 1 trillion rand into infrastructure. There's been, talk about intensifying Operation Vulindlela. So it is within the context of all of that as to how do we, take the state of our nation forward. There has been some positives, prospects in terms of economic growth have been, quite pleasing. Employment, although in a very minuscule way, there have been signs that, we may be seeing some growth. The strength of our currency and the dynamics that it presents. So the President is also giving the State of the Nation address in a context where, just when there was near despair, with some of the issues relating to our foreign policy and so on and so forth. But we expect that given the some of the positive trends that have been happening and indicators, this will embolden him. To give the nation hope on what we will do with unemployment, with poverty, and with inequality.
There are some of the commitments the President has made in the past. Thinking about the university promised in Ekurhuleni, for instance. Some South Africans are asking about that. The smart city as well.
Yeah.
In Lanseria,
Yeah.
some people asking about that. He wanted to deal with the issue of water infrastructure. That's been a promise he's made for a couple of years now. And as you have seen yesterday, the crisis with water in Gauteng. So there seems to be, sometimes there are commitments made, but there are no follow-ups. So can we expect anything from that? As the ANC NEC, do you ask him to give us updates on that?
As the ANC, I think we want to hopefully hear more about what progress has been made with regards to the University of Science and Innovation in Ekurhuleni.
That's your portfolio, actually. Can I ask you to wear that hat? Do you know where the process is?
Well, I don't know. I think we'll have to hear what commitments the President is prepared to make in that regard. There surely has to be some progress. That's a major priority. And with the challenges which we've had with space and so on, so hopefully there will be some details in that regard. He says, I think in some of the conversations that he, is being referred to as Mr. Train, Mr. Speed Train, because of that, and somewhat in a very mocking way. But I think what this marks is, the fact that we may be unable to do certain things at particular times does not mean that our commitment and aspiration to do those things, must not be expressed. We've had, tremendous challenges, and I think that, we want to hear from him as to how are we going to be able to mobilize resources to achieve some of those things, especially because not just him as an individual, but also we as a political party have suffered major decline, because of what has been happening, and also because of the perception that we make commitments which we cannot, keep up to. So hopefully we'll hear some details on some of those commitments made.
All right, Buti Manamela, thank you for chatting to us.
Thank you so much.
He is speaking to us now on behalf of the ANC. He is the ANC NEC member.
Your voice,
Your station.
your open line
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela.
on 702.
23 minutes before 10 o'clock, this is the special edition of the Clement Manyathela Show, live from outside the City Hall, where President Cyril Ramaphosa will be delivering his second State of the Nation address for the 7th administration. Preparations are underway. The red carpet has already been rolled up. There are some, choirs that are performing here. I suppose these are dry runs for tonight. But yeah, it's all systems go really for that State of the Nation address tonight. I'm continuing with your calls on 011-883-0702 on the open line. Your WhatsApps are also coming through on 072-702-1702. In fact, let's go to some of your WhatsApps, and then I'm going to bring in Minister Dean Macpherson, who is the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure.
Good morning, Clement, and good morning to 702 listeners. Clement, we are in trouble, Shem. I about to break. Politicians are breaking, bruh. On a national TV, next night, I go to the hotel. Just like that. Imagine somebody, a person like me, who stays in Alex. Come and see Alexandra. My brother, the voters must wake up. We cannot every now and then be insulted by Bupanyaza. Every now and then we get insulted by Bupanyaza. I'm going to the hotel, just like that, on the national TV, bruh. He was not ashamed. He actually... But what I've noticed, his walk, he realized that he did a mistake by saying that. But it was already late. The damage was done. Panyaza, I used to respect him. But recently, he kept on insulting us, forgetting that he's using our tax money. And there's no way in that hotel he's bathing for free, bruh. He had to pay. Yeah, no, that's the politician for you South Africans. South Africans, wake up.
Good morning, Clement. You're speaking to Lebo from Ekurhuleni. I just want to comment on the ad hoc committee. I had a guy that just called now. He was also touching on it regarding the conduct of the members of parliament. I just want to personally salute Honorable Ashley Sauls. That guy, the way he conducted himself yesterday in his questioning was just amazing. Most of the guys, for me personally, they came off towards Paul O'Sullivan as accusing him. They were just there to prove a point, basically, of how his testimony needs to be questioned or is questionable. But one thing about Honorable Ashley Sauls, he established his level of trust in Paul O'Sullivan's testimony and also gave credit to the guy. I mean, they say give credit where credit is due, and that's basically what Honorable Ashley Sauls. And I just want to salute him. I also want to salute whatever political party that he's representing. For me, that is how a leader needs to conduct himself.
Yeah, he actually represents the Patriotic Alliance. Thank you so much for your WhatsApps. I'll continue with them and your calls after this conversation with Dean Macpherson, who's the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure. Good morning, Minister. How are you?
Morning, Clement. It's nice to be with you outside of the City Hall this morning.
Good to chat to you. Did you shower from the hotel today?
I showered, but Cape Town does have water, so it's a slight difference.
Okay, so infrastructure is always the central theme to the President's address. In fact, if we care about growing this economy, we need to look a lot at investing in infrastructure. Where are we in terms of the commitments that were made last year by the president? I mean, wasn't there 1 trillion rand or so that the president spoke about?
Yes, and that is committed to infrastructure agencies like Eskom, like Sunrail, like Transnet, to be able to invest in that sort of infrastructure. We, for our part, as Infrastructure South Africa, have doubled the infrastructure book, which is what we call the construction book, to 250 billion rand. So that's 250 billion new projects that are now coming into the system. And that's, as I said, was doubled on from the year before. So we are seeing great momentum now in the infrastructure pipeline. It's now we have to ensure that we match that pipeline with funding. Now, actually, 1 trillion rand is a lot of money, but for infrastructure, it's actually not. We should be spending 1.6 trillion rand every year on infrastructure. We're doing that over 3 years. And that's why the participation in the private sector to us is so important. That's why we have now created what we call these bid windows. So we actually fully fund the project preparation and bankability of infrastructure projects so that we take them into the conditions that the private sector are looking to invest in them. And that has been revolutionary, at least for us to be able to draw private sector investment. And that was shown last year for the first time in a decade when private sector investment into infrastructure outpaced government. Now that hasn't happened for a decade. And what does that mean? It means that the private sector has confidence in our ability to be able to create projects that are acceptable to them, that they can derive revenue from, and that can be delivered. And what is the net effect of that? Well, the net effect of that was 130,000 new jobs in Q3 of last year in construction alone. It meant for the first time in 12 months that GDP from construction was positive, after it had been negative for 3 consecutive quarters. So we are headed in the right direction. Do we want more? Absolutely. I'm the first one to put up my hand and say, I would love us to even double more what we are doing. And that's what we're going to be looking forward to this year, is how do we speed that up even more? Because there are 2 obsessions that we have, and it's got to be around growth and jobs. And everything that doesn't speak to those 2 metrics, we must forget about it.
Yeah, and what about project readiness? Because that's something Infrastructure South Africa has also been trying to assist in. Are we making any headways with that, ensuring that, projects are actually ready and they can attract that level of investment?
Absolutely. We obsess about that at Infrastructure SA, which is why under my term, one thing that we came up with was this project preparation bid windows, where private sector people, the public sector could bid for us to be able to provide funding, not just to provide funding, but to actually do the preparation ourselves, because we have such a good record of being able to prepare and package projects for private sector participation. And we get, on average, around 50 to 70 billion rand per project window worth of applications. So, it says to me 2 things, Clement. The first thing is that South Africa doesn't have a shortage of projects that need to be built. We have a shortage of being able to get them into the right format for investment, and 2, that investment to actually build them. And so we're working hard to try and close that problem, which we are getting absolutely better at.
Yeah, I want to play you a voice note that we've received from one of our listeners who's asking a question about some of government's unused buildings. So let's take a listen to that.
Morning, Clement. Please, man, ask the Minister of Public Works, what is he doing with government buildings like SAPS barracks and other government buildings that are not in good state, that are vandalized, that are not maintained? What are they doing as a Department of Public Works to manage and to make sure that those buildings are fully functional and service? Thank you very much, Clement.
Thank you.
You have very informed listeners, Clement. Let me say this. We have to do 2 things. The first thing we have to do is be able to secure our land and buildings. Too many of them are overrun by people who've hijacked them. 2 days ago, I received a court judgment where we are evicting people that had unlawfully invaded land. We have continuing evictions here in the city of Cape Town, Johannesburg, East London, all around the country to take back what is ours. The second thing is that we have to say we have a 150 billion rand asset portfolio of the state. Are we generating any revenue from that? And the answer to that is no. We don't generate a single rand. Now compare that to listed property funds that do. There's a mismatch there. And so we want to, and we are going to this year, do the single biggest thing in public works, and that is to actually reprioritize the asset base of the state to do two things. One, to actually generate revenue, and then two, to use that revenue generation then into social infrastructure. So fixing up the police barracks, fixing up the local hospital. But we've got to use core assets to be able to do that, to get investors to come and co-develop them with us, and then actually to run a book of assets that are growing in value over time, but also generating revenue. And I think that that's a big, big thing that we are fully focused. It's the one big thing we have to get right this year, and we have to fix that problem once and for all.
All right, Dean, thank you for speaking to us.
Thanks, Clement. Thank you.
I really appreciate it. He is the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure